MoxStars podcast. I am Menace, and I'm here with Flash.
What's up? There were some sound effects in the background that I heard little bits of.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't really hear it in my. I obviously heard it in my earphones, but it was really in the background. I don't think we were ever going to get these sound effects to play diegetically for me.
No, this soundboard, man. I don't know what it is. Why? One day it'll just click, and I'll warp the settings a little bit, and it'll do its thing. You know, like then you'll be able to hear them. But until then, you're just gonna have to sit in silence and just know and trust that I'm giving you your due via soundboard.
Yeah, no, every time I hear silence while we're recording, it's like, well, is this dead air or is there a sound effect playing somewhere? And usually I just go, well, it's probably a sound effect.
Yeah, yep. It's like we're just waiting for the applause to finish. And it's usually a Pete kind of takes his time. But, welcome to the show, everybody. It's the MoxStars podcast, the #1 podcast on the internet for Magic the Gathering and Dr. Pepper, which if you didn't know, Dr. Pepper sent me a personal message on Instagram this past week. Super hot stuff here. I posted an image to my story. I was making jorts with my cat on my lap and a Dr. Pepper in my hand. So they sent me a message and they said, "You guys are super cute." And I didn't know what to say. I was stunned. So maybe this is my opportunity to ask for a sponsorship. Who knows? This is also the home of the mid-range mindset. And what other things were the Naughty Boys of Cardboard?
The Naughty Boys of Cardboard, the mid-range mindset. I feel like there's some other crap that we say. Willie sent us peeps. It's been over a month since Willie sent us peeps.
By the way, it was actually a false, that wasn't Willie. It was UWP Quirt.
Oh.
Yeah.
So Willie still owes us peeps.
Willie still does owe us peeps. We didn't get any from Willie.
Well, no tokens for Willie until we get those peeps. I feel like that's only fair.
Hey, that's a good segue. If you didn't know it, if you aren't on the Discord server, first check out the link in the description below. You can join our Discord server and take a nice, good look at some high-res images of the tokens that just came in the mail. Whoa! And they are beautiful. Oh my God. Oh yeah, if you're on YouTube right now, you're loving this. But they're double-sided. There are 5 tokens: a construct, snake, thrall, copy, and treasure. And God, they look so good. Designs by Death Milk Designs, a friend of ours. And we're so stoked to actually have them and to be able to send them to you. If you are a patron and you haven't reached out to me yet, make sure you do. I will send you a set of tokens for just the cost of shipping. If you're not a patron and you would like a set of the tokens after taking a peep at them on the Discord server, I'm selling them for $10 a set. So let me know if you want a copy or if you want a set of tokens. They're the coolest tokens that any content creator has ever made. So, yeah. Also, if you'd like to support the show, you can find us on YouTube, where you can like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more notifications. You can also find us on all major podcasting platforms, where you can leave us a 5-star review and make us look super duper cool, even though we are the Naughty Boys of Cardboard. And it's pretty hard to be cooler than that. The 5-star review does help maintain that reputation, that authority as the Naughty Boys of Cardboard. You can also find us or support us directly through Patreon, where you can become an official Pepperhead for $3 a month. You can also become a cherry vanilla pepperhead. Like UWP Quirt will rule. And now, K Mr. K, thank you all so much for supporting the show. And that's pretty much the support line right there. Thank you, everybody who's been watching and sticking with it for so long, and new viewers and new listeners who are just joining the show now. We're just getting started. The show is just getting better week by week. And this week, we have a bunch of tiny little things to talk about because I think we're very much in the boat that Modern Horizons 3 is the most exciting thing that's happening this coming week. This episode...
Yeah, I mean, Modern Horizons is the flagship set for, like, you know, for Wizards and for competitive players. Like, I think it's clear from a design standpoint and then also from a gameplay standpoint that, like, Modern Horizons is the premier product. That's, you know, for hardcore Magic players, not the people buying, like, the licensed products and all that sort of stuff, which is also, you know, part of the product cycle, not the regular set releases that are part of the storyline. That's also part of the product cycle, but it's Modern Horizons. Like, this is where the power cards are. These are the things that are going to affect the meta. Like, obviously, you know, you saw the jump between 1 and 2 and now 2 and 3, where, like, obviously they're putting tons of thought into the design space of these sets, like, more so than the regular releases. Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, this one, not only are you getting new cards that are going to pump a ton of gas into your commander decks, into Modern, if you're interested or you were interested or are interested in getting into that format. Like, this is the opportunity. You are going to be getting fetch lands. You're going to be getting, like, valuable reprints, like, to support, or to, yeah, basically support every Eternal format and Modern. So it is, like, I'm going to pre-release this Sunday, and I haven't been this excited for a pre-release in a long time, just because, like, of the power that we'll be playing with. I'll be, like, rewarded for my knowledge as a player, my experience as a player, and God have mercy on new players who sit across the table from me, because I'm going to destroy them, get my 3 packs at the end of the day, and walk away a happy boy. So, Modern Horizons 3, this, like you said, Ritter, this is the premier set. This is what, everyone's been looking towards. This is what we've had our eyes on for the last 2 weeks now. And we've, talked about it quite a bit. There are, like, few cards like that are, I think everyone's sort of, like, picked out a few cards that they think are going to, like, make the jump in CEDH and be, like, contribute to the format. If I'm, like, going to call one card out and make a really safe bet from Modern Horizons 3 as to, like, contributing to the format the most, I think I got to say it's going to be Vexing Bauble. If y'all haven't seen Vexing Bauble. Vexing Bauble is a 1-mana artifact. We've talked about it before, but it is whenever a player casts a spell, if no mana was spent to cast it, counter it. You can also pay 1, tap it, sacrifice Vexing Bauble, draw a card. This is a wonderful, some might say, stacks piece, but I think it contributes more to Turbo. It just holds the fort down when you're being hella aggressive and want to make the jump or the pursuit of an early game win. So, like, turn 2 or turn 3, you can, like, have this on the battlefield, and as your opponents are setting their plans up, you can drop this and then just pursue victory right there without really having to worry about, like, free interaction, which now more than ever we have, that is, we're getting more and more free interaction, obviously with certain, like, stipulations, some more time goes on. But I think some of the most popular cards in the format, if you're playing 5-color good stuff, you feel safe when you take a hand with a Force of Negation, a Force of Will, or, obviously in early game Pact Negation does nothing, but this stops that. Not only does this stop the free interaction, if you drop this on, if you're first in turn order and you drop this on turn 1, you now have the advantage. Like, you get to drop all of your rocks for free, and then you drop this, and then all of your opponents are stuck. Like, their crypts get countered, their like Chromoxes get countered, their Mox.
Is it Christmas land scenario, Candyland scenario, where like you're doing exactly what you're saying, where you're dropping all your rocks, and then you're trying to put Vexing Bauble in play? And do you think people are gonna get like in the habit of being like, well, we gotta use one of our free counter spells on this?
Absolutely.
And you draw it out that way.
Yeah. I think that this...
So you're still getting value out of it, even if it gets countered.
Right.
Because it's, at least in one instance, doing the thing that it's there to do.
Right. And because if you are running it, you are designing your build, probably designing your build to account for it. So there's like, if the player dropping it is putting it down, it's for a reason to go for the win, or to pursue aggressively, like at least to put a win attempt on the stack. So like, the good thing here about it is that even if you are using it as a stacks piece and someone else pursues the win, it is super easy to get rid of it. 1 colorless mana, sacrifice it, draw a card. You can lift the gates for everybody else to be able to interact. So this does a lot. You know, it seems like it's very straightforward on its face, but yeah, it does a lot just when you actually take a step back and look at it. So yeah, this is my safe bet for cards that will contribute to CEDH from Modern Horizons 3. Ritter, are there any competitive cards outside of the flares, or maybe it is a flare that you've been interested in?
No, not particularly. I kind of just want to see the fallout of what actually has an impact. You know, like I'm saying, these are the premier sets that have big impact on the meta, and there's going to be multiple cards out of this set that do it, right? Yeah,
it takes time for it to like you said, the aftermath. Everything, the dust has to settle. We can you know, all this conjecture, all this like projection out here aside, you know, it takes months for players to really settle on what strategies like are really going to make a difference. I think
because I mean, Wizards is like, here's a bunch of stuff that you could potentially break with these Modern Horizons set. Like, that is kind of the selling point, right? Like, hey, we're gonna print a bunch of stuff that on its face seems pretty busted and pretty comparable to like the all-timer high-powered cards, comparable to reserve list stuff, like, you know, maybe a notch or two below, but stuff ready to break, stuff ready to change the format in major ways. Figure it out, because it could be any of these cards, right? A lot of the cards have that potential, and you just kind of have to see how it plays out.
Yeah, like one in particular that like screams potential, but I have no idea how it works, is Haragast, the Erupting Nullkite. 9 colorless mana, emerge for 6 and 2 red. When you cast a spell, you may exile your hand. If you do, draw 3 cards. It's a 6/6 flying. Each creature spell you cast has emerge. The emerge cost is equal to its mana cost. So if you're unfamiliar with emerge, you can sacrifice a creature as an additional cost, and you reduce the mana value, or you reduce the mana cost by that creature's mana value. So tokens don't contribute to this, but that's where this is like difficult to really figure out how this plays out. But they printed it at Mythic, which to me sends off a little bit of an alarm, just to, you know, be like, oh, they clearly designed this because it breaks things, and that's why it is at Mythic. I think maybe like Affinity, you know, might want this just because it's at a certain point it becomes a 2 red mana, draw 3 cards. And you also have a 6/6 flyer that allows you to sort of, I mean, you can potentially reduce the cost of the next creature spell you cast by 9 by sacrificing Haragast. So it is a pseudo ritual in a way as well. But I still don't see how in my brain, I can't quite put together how this is broken. I don't think you can really break it in Commander. So, yeah, a difficult one to project. I forgot where I was going with that entirely, but the set, like you said, people are going to figure this. They're going to figure this shit out. And once it all settles, then we can report back with what we've seen. Flash, I did something really, really great this past week.
Okay,
And
what's that?
I went and played a 60 card format, and it was Pioneer, and I had a great time. Like,
oh, look at you.
Yeah, look at me getting out in the wild, doing something.
And we're
new.
talking about you playing a 60-card format in cardboard, not even on Arena.
In cardboard and with real cards. The opportunity was presented to me by my buddy Owen, who is a regular at Pioneer Night at Mox Boarding House in Seattle. And it was, I got to borrow a deck, and it was actually like a ton of fun. It was mono black discard, tempo control. And it was like, I didn't do well. I went 1-3. And the thing is like there are a lot of nuance movements and plays. Like in my brain, Commander play, my mind for Commander, like in playing that game is fine. But like all of those little habits and all those little like play patterns that I'd gotten used to in a 4-player format had actually cost me a couple games throughout the course of the night. So it's definitely like you got to rework your brain a little bit. Like you have to change gears in order to play more efficiently and to actually like compete. It's very quick, not in like the games end quickly, but your options, because you're only playing against one player, are much more limited. And so like a lot of your decisions are clear cut. You can still think about how they're going to affect the game moving down the line and down, as turns progress. But it is like, there's just a lot of complexity to it in a different way. It's like going from Magic to Pokemon, and you're like sitting there and you're like, I understand that these are cards and I kind of figure out how they work. And then you realize that the way things layer are just a little bit different. So I had a great time. I'm definitely going back. I want to continue to play, but I want to build something of my own. And unfortunately, Modern Horizons 3 can't help me. God forbid that. But it's like I'm really curious because I played against some of the best decks in the format. Like if you're unfamiliar with Pioneer, I wish I'd prepared a link for this, but if you're unfamiliar with Pioneer, right now the top deck that is producing the most consistent results is Vampires. And since the release of Vein Ripper in Murders at Karlov Manor, Sorin of whatever, Sorin is the 2 and a black planeswalker that says you can -2 it and put a vampire from your hand onto the battlefield. And so people just straight up drop a Vein Ripper out of their hand out of nowhere. So on turn 3, Sorin comes down, unless like it's pretty hard to interact with, and you get 1 activation. Vein Ripper drops. It's a 6/5 flying that says it has ward, sacrifice a creature. And then whenever a creature dies, you gain 2 life and your opponent loses 2 life. So it's savage. It is near unbeatable. And there are very few things that you can do to like stop it. And then not only that, if they don't have the Vein Ripper, they drop a Preacher of the Schism on you, and then they start generating tons of card advantage. And it really was something to behold, to see it play against it and just see, like, I lost to it in 2 games. I sideboarded against it. Like obviously the deck performed a little bit better against it, but it was just really hard to overcome. When you thought sees this, like a vampire player, you see Sorin, Preacher, and Vein Ripper, and you just go, I guess I'll take the Sorin, so you can't drop a Vein Ripper on my head. And then they get to turn 3 and they drew the Sorin anyway. And then you're dealing with a Vein Ripper.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about the 60 card formats, right?
Yeah.
There's 4 copies that you got to worry about.
Yeah, and that's like to go into that.
And also people will mulligan to get the cards they need because there's 4 copies of each and you have some redundancies.
Yeah, like when I was mulliganing, I was like considering, like, do I keep this Thoughtseize? Do I keep this hand because it's 2 lands, a Thoughtseize, and then a Waste Knot? And so, and then how do you sequence it? Do you just wait for things to happen, since they're gonna, like most decks are gonna play a land pass or play one of those tap surveil lands because they're way better in 60 card format, where surveilling is essentially, getting a half of a turn or it's half of a card, potentially more if you're playing graveyard shenanigans. But it was like, do I sequence it so that I get the Waste Knot trigger off the Thoughtseize? Answer is no. You always look at their hand to see what they have. Don't wait. It's a trap. But yeah, it's like you get 4 copies of things. So there's like obviously the mono black deck playing tons of Fatal Push. Like that is something you always have to be conscious of. And everybody is pretty much every deck outside of one. I played against blue-white control, and I also played against Gruul aggro, and it was surprising how controlling and how effective. Like there was a lot of newer cards, but when you start playing against like black decks, I played against Rakdos, and I also played against it was Rakdos Vampire, so 2 Rakdos decks, and like the Fatal Push is disgusting. You can't stop it. Like there's not a lot you can do. And so when you're building a new deck,
Fatal Push, great card in a 60 card format.
Yeah, if you're unfamiliar with Fatal Push, because it doesn't make the cut ever in commander decks, it is 1 black mana. It says destroy target creature with mana value 2 or less, and then it has Revolts. If a permanent left your battlefield this turn, you may destroy target creature with mana value 4 or less. So
honestly, on its face, a super cracked card, and it just goes to show you, like, how the power creep in CDH, where like that's a 1 mana removal that takes care of pretty much every creature on the board.
Yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't make the cut.
And all you have to do is like crack a fetch land to get the Revolt online.
Yep.
It is a permanent. You can crack a treasure. Revolt is online. It's just like here is how cracked CDH is. It has to generate some level of card advantage if it's going to be playable. Like outside of that, like if it is just 1 pure removal card, the thing is that things like Swords to Plowshares and like Path to Exile do make the cut because they're that much more efficient. They don't have a stipulation. It's just exile target creature. So that is where the line, I think, is drawn. And that's why, 1 mana black instants that have these restrictions don't usually make it unless you're Sans White or you're, something like that. So maybe if you're playing like green black, something like that could make the cut because you're probably playing some sort of sacrifice strategy if you're without red. But yeah, it's a really great card in 60 card formats. And just speaking on my experience and now the process that I'm going through with like building a deck is a lot of creature strategies fold to if you're playing against any sort of like combination of, Rakdos or anything with black in it. It's like you're going to fold to a Fatal Push no matter what. Like I wanted to build some sort of like Jund sacrifice nonsense, and it was.
Well, isn't Rakdos Scam one of the big decks right now, which is essentially that archetype?
Yeah. So I guess I didn't get to play against the Scam deck, but
okay.
Yeah,
lucky you.
Yeah, the Blood Tithe Harvesters are really good for card advantage too, and it's a 3/2 for 2 mana. But I'm so excited to like play. I was so happy when I left. I was 1-3 and I was happy. Not many times that happens. But it's a great format. If you guys are looking to get into something that can sort of like breathe, like give you that sort of like breath of fresh air, I do encourage everybody to go out, give Pioneer a shot, because the decks right now are actually super cheap. You can build something like on the budget and have it compete. The thing is that if you want to start going to tournament, most of the time you need between 2 and 4 Shieldreds if you want to play in black, and that is where you run into trouble. That, for context, let's see what a Shieldred costs on Card Kingdom. It is $100. Is $100 for a Shieldred right now.
I mean, Shieldred has been sitting there at 100. I think she's due for a reprint. Like just for the level of competitive play she sees in multiple formats and just where the price point is at, it's like one of those things where I don't know when, or probably not. Like a secret layer doesn't solve the problem, but we need more copies.
Yeah, like you can get one for 85, like that's what it says here, is like there are copies for 85 after tax. You're still paying
but like if it's a card that you need 4 of for 60 card formats, and you need at least 1 copy of for 100 card formats, and there's not a lot of copies in circulation, like I get Dockside and Ragavan, and like when Urza Lord High Artificer and things like that are near $100, where mostly they're relevant to CDH, where you're already mixing it up with lots of really expensive cards. But when you're talking about a 60 card format and you need 4 copies of something, like locking in, you need to spend $400 on 10% of your deck. It is, I think, unreasonable. It's an unreasonable ask.
Yeah, this is my biggest criticism of Wizards of the Coast is the secondary market. They always say that they don't acknowledge it, or that or at least they have in the past, but clearly they do, since secret layer is a thing. That is clear acknowledgement of a secondary market. But the thing is that Pokemon will reprint their World Championships decks. So like any deck that someone builds off, and so a new set comes out, new cards influence the format. Someone takes that deck to tournament, they win the World Championships with it. The company looks at that and says, wouldn't it be great if we had more world champions out there? So we're going to reprint this deck that this person built and give it to everybody and sell it for $30. So if you want the most competitive deck in the format, here it is. And that drives the price of these cards down, like to the point of where everyone can afford it. And like Shieldred has been at the top of the meta for so long that it would be worth it. And Wizards of the Coast used to do this, their World Championships decks, but they would print them in gold border, so you couldn't actually use them in a tournament. That just that's a feel bad moment, I think, when we look back on it, with everything that other games have done to create a healthy competitive culture. And like Magic has always been cost prohibitive, which is why we're so adamant about proxying and printing your own tokens, because even some of the tokens in Magic are ridiculously expensive. The Treasure Shaman from Fable the Mirror Breaker is like a $14 token, and like if you want to play at tournament, you need one. So it's kind of crazy, it's kind of insane. And Shieldred is probably the primary example in the past 2 years that has really led us to scratch our heads as to why, we're getting a ton of product. But secret layers need to be boosted by not giving. Here's my first suggestion to Wizards of the Coast. If you are listening to this, you dictate the cards that artists get to produce. and you dictate what cards they are based on how expensive they are in the secondary market, because you do see it. So like, have an artist be like, hey, you can make 3 whatever cards you want, but one of them has to be a Shieldred. That way we can sell this freaking set. We can sell this secret lair. And then, whatever other cards that are out there. Hey, this secret lair is just tokens that are $10 or more. Boom, done. And we're going to toss in an extra treasure that this artist wanted to do as well. So that's one. There are multiple ways to fix this. To be competitive in 60 card formats, you shouldn't have to like sit there and like worry about what it's going to cost you or how big of a hole it's going to leave in your pocket. Like at the end of the day, like I couldn't even imagine, and Flash used to play like Modern pretty regularly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like those decks, even back then, were probably, at least in some ways, cost prohibitive. And it's one of those things where you're holding on to this thing, and I'm actually a little uncomfortable sitting at a table with a ton of money now. And I think that was one thing that, I'm very grateful to Owen for, is allowing me to borrow this deck that had multiple copies of Shieldred. And it's for him to trust me and, to not damage them, to not lose them, to keep track of them. I couldn't even imagine, like, if I lent a deck out and it was probably like $600 or so, and it's being like, don't lose it. Don't lose that deck. Because it's $600. It's insane. But that being said, just saying how cost-effective Pioneer can be. The top decks are still pretty cost prohibitive, but you can still go to these tournaments or these little like weekly events that your LGS might be having and compete at like a reasonable level. Play removal that specifically targets Shieldred. Play removal that is specifically targeting or handling the top cards in the format, like Vein Ripper or a Sorin. So like most of the time, like I was looking at like white stacks. There's that one white creature from, I think it's from Theros, or like the Beyond Death, Theros Beyond Death, but it was a creature that makes Planeswalker abilities cost 1 more to activate. And so you literally put your opponents off for an entire turn in Pioneer just by playing that. It's a 2 mana creature. I can't really remember exactly what it is, but the name of it. But it absolutely hoses the top deck in the format. If you wanted to play white and you wanted to sideboard that in, and that is a 25-cent card. So
yeah, that's that's another thing you just mentioned for the first time. Sideboards, big difference.
Yes, that was actually good point. Huge difference. Like I sideboarded against every deck I played against. And
yeah, I mean, well, in a 100-card format, you're creating a deck that can respond to the most likely decks in your meta, right?
Right.
Outside of the core of what you're doing in your deck, you're integrating into those 100 cards, I don't know, maybe 10 slots that are basically anti-meta silver bullet stuff, and that could float depending on who you are and what your deck does, but it's something you're thinking about in constructing a 100-card deck. In a 60-card format, I mean, your deck can pretty much just be built to do the thing it does, right? Yeah. And then you have your 15-card sideboard, and like you can be built to win game 1 or compete in game 1, and then have a sideboard that just absolutely obliterates whatever you come against.
Yeah, your decks are usually built in the 60-card format to do, like, if you're left unabated by the opponent game 1, like your deck is going to do what it needs to do, what it is designed to do. And then like your sideboard, and this was the cool thing, like this is how competitive it is. Owen had printed out a cheat sheet for me based on every deck that I was, like there were like 16 decks on this list And it was just like, if you play against this, this is what you side out and this is what you side in. And I was just like floored. And there were some explanations like as well to be like, this is why you're doing this. This is like, the outcome that you're looking for by siding these in. And he didn't have like a mulligan strat for like every single deck. And that's fine, but those little notes went a long way to make sure that I could compete in game 2 and then get to game 3 and make the change in style and play, and play patterns. So it's sideboarding. And this is a question I proposed to the Discord server this past week is what if CEDH had a 10 card sideboard that you could use at the beginning of the game, like sit down at the table, turn orders decided, flip the commanders, everyone gets 5 minutes to sideboard into their 10 cards, like to make changes. And then Guy instantly debunked that entire idea. It was impressive how quickly he was like, yeah, you can't do that just because wish cards exist. And I went, oh, yeah, that's a very good point. Karn, the 4-mana Karn that shuts down artifacts, is a wish card as well. So it allows you to search your sideboard for an artifact and put it into your hand. And that is just disgusting, to be able to have access to certain things like that. So where like companions are revealed and they have some sort of like deck building construction, the degenerate part of the community in CDH would just use that 10 cards and like put as an extension of their deck, not as not to have cards that actually handle other decks. They wouldn't actually like use the sideboard to prepare for other decks they're seeing. They would use it as a way to more reliably and aggressively pursue their lines. And that,
totally makes sense. Like, because one thing to do is to be defensive, but sometimes, as they sometimes say, the best defense is a good offense. So if you can just make if you know that your opponent isn't going to sideboard in stuff that's going to be a silver bullet to you, or you're not afraid of that, you can just sideboard to be more aggressive on your own. And that's another way to win games 2 and 3.
Yeah. I can imagine that if you sat at a table and you're like, well, there's no blue decks here, quick, put every hyper aggressive turbo card in the sideboard.
Yeah, let's just play gas.
Yeah. You become even more like, you can take out some of your interaction. You can take out like some of those things and just like hyper focus. So, so probably not going to happen at a CDH tournament near you anytime soon until we ban all wish cards. But a good thought. And I appreciate everybody who contributed to entertaining that thought, just to be able to like learn why we don't do that. I think that's a important process to go under. So 60 card formats, sideboarding. It is incredibly important and also takes additional thought to be able to put 15 cards together that's going to be able to handle a majority of the decks that you're going to come up against. And even, you play 4 matches, there are 16 cards or 16 decks on my cheat sheet. Every single one was present. So I had, like something to go off of there and to like swap things in. It's, part of the process. And that's kind of like the struggle with building as well, is like, I can build a deck. I can, and put something together. I haven't even started to think about the sideboard. So there's still additional work to be put in, and little details to iron out over the course of time. But it's something that I'm really excited for. And if you out there, listeners in the Seattle area, want to join me for Pioneer, I'll be there most Mondays. I think I'm definitely going back this next Monday at Mox Boarding House, 6 p.m. It is $10 to enter. And if you go undefeated, you get $60. it's pretty rad. It's store credit, but if you didn't know this, the website that I'm on now on YouTube, Card Kingdom, is run by Mox Boarding House. So you just get $60 Card Kingdom credit. And the one thing that I was telling Owen, because he 4-0'd the last 2 events he went to, I was like, damn, dude, this just basically lets you build more decks and continue to upgrade your decks. As long as you bring a deck that is competitive and can perform, get your money back. If you win one game, tie one game, you get your money back. And then anything beyond that, you start to profit. So I think that that is a great incentive, great tournament structure, weekly tournament structure by Mox Boarding House. And I'm excited to go back just to not only compete and get the chance at a return on investment, but to further understand the format. Because there's one thing that I've learned in building commander decks. My most successful strategies have been from 60 card formats. My first ever commander deck was Hepatra, and that was built as an extension of a 60 card deck that I had built. So I was able to understand the nuance and the importance of making contact with Hepatra to get the neg1 counters rolling, and then my favorite strategy with Xeris, the Writhing Storm, is I love Song of Creation. I love that card. It was a standard deck that I built. So
hey, speaking of Xeris, aren't there Wizards has never printed 1/1 snake tokens with Death Touch, right?
Well, they have. They printed the Hepatra one, but that's only been printed in Amonkhet. But we do it's funny you say that. Where were you going with that?
Yeah, why did I mention that? It's on the tip of my tongue.
Well, I might have one in my hand.
You might?
Right here. Yeah.
Is it on screen now?
It is indeed on screen. Wow.
Look at that. We got some new tokens.
Oh, there we go. And this snake token pops. I'm telling you, out of all of them, this one is just electric, and I'm glad that I had a hand in that. God, it's so pretty. We have construct tokens. Woo-hoo. Looks like an angry T2 and copy. Oh yeah. Thralls and treasure tokens, which are hot, super hot. Like I said, if you want to get your hands on a set of these, you can join the Discord server, reach out to me personally, and we'll see about getting some in your hands. Now that
we got to look into. Sorry, not to get totally off track.
Yeah.
Do you remember the old lenticular baseball card or sports card technology? Where when you shift it, the image shifts a little bit. Not in a crazy full 3D way, but in a kind of cool way.
Yeah.
Man, that treasure token would really pop if we figured out lenticular card technology somewhere.
That,
if anyone from Donruss or Fleer or Bowman is listening, hit us up. Let us know how to make lenticular cards.
I'm going to look into that. Are you talking about the textured face on them too? Or?
Yeah, that's sort of ridged, and then just depending on what angle you hit, I think it cycles through 3 images, right? Basically.
Yeah, it's like when you're in art class in grade school and they're like, hey, make an accordion out of paper and then spread it out and then do 2 different, in that way you see 2 different images depending on the angle. Yes, I'm going to look into that. I'm making note of that right now. Lenticular.
But still, anyone from Donruss or Fleer wants to reach out, just let us know. I have some follow-up questions about the Nolan Ryan 1992 Donruss card. I think gave him a couple errors in the 91 season that he didn't have. It's a misprint. So,
oh my God,
we have some other business to discuss.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure you could probably host another podcast about misprinted baseball cards if you wanted to.
Oh, I mean, there's lots of podcasts that could exist in the world, but why?
Yeah. That's not to question why we exist. This is the number one podcast on the internet for Magic the Gathering and Dr. Pepper. I know we got a little off track here and there, but thank you so much for joining us this week to talk about Pioneer and 60 card formats. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you'd like to support us, you can find us on YouTube by hitting that thumbs up, ringing that bell for more notifications, and don't forget to subscribe. If you're this far in the show and you haven't subscribed yet, what are you doing? And
you'll listen to an hour of this, but you won't do that every week. You are committed at this point.
Right.
If you're listening to this part of the episode, subscribe. Like, why are you fooling yourself?
There are some like YouTube channels that I will sit and I'll watch 6 of their episodes, and then I'll be like, why did I not just subscribe and get new episodes? But if you'd like to support this show or any other show, you can also find us on all major podcasting platforms. You can give us 5-star reviews, make us look like the true naughty boys of cardboard, and you can also support us directly by finding us on Patreon for $3 a month. You can become an official Pepperhead, or you can become an official Cherry Vanilla Pepperhead, like UWP Court, Will Rule, and K Mr. K. And I think that's pretty much it. I'm ready for lunch.
It is nearly lunchtime.
Nearly lunchtime. All right, let's get the heck out of here and stay tuned. Once we sign off, I'm going to do the giveaway. So stay tuned to see who wins this borderless foil Unfinity Sacred Foundry.
Hey, I have a question. Where can people get our tokens?
By going to our Discord server, and you can reach out to us directly and we'll get some tokens in your hands. That's just the most efficient way at the moment. And once this proves to be successful, we'll look into setting up some sort of like shop front or storefront.
I have another question, speaking of merch.
Yes.
Do we still have playmats for sale?
I have one. One old school MoxStars playmat available.
Did we move all the new ones?
Yes, we did move all the new ones. Yep. So yeah, there's another one on the horizon, or there's got to be another order put in on the horizon. Mm-hmm. So I'll look into that as well. I'll also be running a special on Patreon in the coming weeks, so stay tuned for that, where you can get an annual subscription instead of just the monthly, and all the benefits that entails. That's pretty much it. I've been trying to put in a little bit more work on benefits for viewers, benefits for listeners. So and those
free refills on Dr. Pepper. If you have obviously your MoxStars reusable branded cup with you.
Right.
Unlimited refills on Dr. Pepper.
It's the only way. It's actually endorsed by the company as well. So they will see that if you go to a 7-Eleven, a Quick Trip, or whatever.
Hardee's, Carl's Jr., wherever you are.
Yep. Cane's. Go to Cane's.
Yeah, definitely go to Raising Cane's, regardless of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Go right now, look up the nearest Raising Cane's location. If you're in the Seattle area, that location is unfortunately going to be Portland, but you should go. Take a trip.
They're supposed to be putting one in over at the U District.
Allegedly here in U District, but it was supposed to be open as of right now, and they are definitely nowhere near open.
Like they're supposed to open at 11 a.m. on June 5th?
I mean June 2024, and the construction is in my neighborhood, and they haven't even started.
Oh,
this project that was announced 2 or 3 years ago to be open now.
God, that just pisses me right off. All right, let's get the heck out of here.
Bye.
Bye. What is up, Pepperheads? Thank you so much for sticking around to the end of the show. We're doing our bi-weekly giveaway right here, right now. It is this Sacred Foundry borderless foil from Unfinity. Let's go ahead and spin the wheel and see who wins. Who is it? It's Kunai. Nice. Will Rule. Congratulations. You are the winner of a borderless foil sacred foundry from Infinity. Remember that if you are here and you're listening to this, that you can enter into these giveaways by staying tuned to the channel. I'll give you each an opportunity to enter get a free entry. And then if you become a patron, you can become a $3 patron, become an official Pepperhead, get a free entry into every single one of these giveaways, or become a cherry vanilla Pepperhead for $5 a month and get 2 free entries into every single one of these giveaways. Kunai 08 just so happens to be a cherry vanilla Pepperhead, and it goes to show it pays off. Congratulations. Thank you so much, everybody, for participating, and stay tuned for next week's giveaway. Peace.